Hi, and welcome to the Olive Branch Community Church. Great to be with you here today. It's almost Christmas, and we'd love for you to join us Christmas Eve. If you've never been to our church before and been with us in person, this is a perfect time. We'll be singing Christmas songs and carols that you are familiar with, and there'll be a Christmas talk. It's a perfect thing to kick off your Christmas celebrations. So it's on Christmas Eve, that's Tuesday, and you have two options. You can join us at 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. There's childcare provided. There's no reason for you not to join us. It'll be great. So we would love to meet you, and make sure you introduce yourself. Before we get into some worship, just want to let you know that today we are continuing our message series entitled All In, Choosing to Love Christmas Again. And so this series is all about just stripping away all the extra stuff that actually makes Christmas kind of miserable. And so because we want you to be able to cut straight to the heart of what the meaning of Christmas is. So keep your hearts and your minds open and see what God has to say to us today. So let's spend some time in worship, and we're so glad that you have joined us.
When I was in high school, football was the biggest deal in our school. Up here, of course, it's hockey. Down in Pittsburgh, down in that area, of course, it's football. So I always thought, it'd be so cool to be able to be on the football team. Of course, they were kind of an elite group in our high school, and catch the winning touchdown under the lights of of our stadium. And we actually did have a stadium in our high school. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit why that never happened. It's because I was afraid of getting hurt. I mean, really, we had this one guy on our football team by the name of Billy Rosenzweig. So Billy was like 365 pounds, 6'5". And I thought, man, if I get in a contest with him, I'm going to get squashed like a bug. Now, here's my conviction. My conviction is that, if you're going to be good at any sport, you have to have kind of the killer instinct and this inside part of you that says, I am not going to hand this ball over to you. I'm not going to, give this puck to you. You can smash me. You can break my bones. I'll bleed. There will be blood, but I am not going to give it up. So I think that that's kind of the attitude that's necessary, But the truth is that there is really pain and inconvenience in just about anything that you want to do that matters in this world, not just sports, okay? Now, it's especially true when God wants to do something through your life. And he doesn't tell us there will be blood, you're going to be in pain, you're going to be in the hospital. No, it just means that there's going to be discomfort. Last week we talked about how when it came to rescuing us and rescuing all of creation, that all of eternity, including the presence, the power of God, was focused before things even started off here, all on rescuing this world and rescuing us. It says in Ephesians, and Paul wrote this in Ephesians 1:4, he says, God chose us before the creation of the world. He knew what he was going to do back in the eons of eternity. And I don't know what that looks like, I just know it's true. And what that means is that God also knew way back then who he was going to choose to do this and who he was going to ask to be all in. So on one day, early spring, I'm guessing 6 BC, he sent his angel Gabriel to one of his favorite angels to pay Mary a visit. She was going to be the prime one that he would target. Now, here's what I want you to know. I want you to think about, what if God had presented this job opportunity to you? This mission. What if he had said to you, this is going to be really, really tough. It's going to be really difficult. There won't be hardly any rewards this side of the grave, but you get to the other side and it's going to be amazing. Trust me. Would you have taken it on? Now, Luke records kind of a sketch of Mary's early encounter with Gabriel, one of God's favorite angels, and her life calling. Let me read it. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee. And this is like a know-nothing, podunk place, okay? To a virgin named Mary. She was engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of King David. Gabriel appeared to her, and he said, "Greetings, favored woman. The Lord is with you." What does that mean? Confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. "Don't be afraid, Mary," the angel told her. "You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be very great, will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David, and he will reign all over Israel forever. His kingdom will never end." Now, we don't really know much about Mary, except that she was probably in her teens, somewhere between 13 and 15, which is when girls usually got married in that culture. And she was engaged, and God was pleased with her life. God had been watching her. He was pleased with her life. And her calling would bless her. It was way more than she would ever dream it could possibly be, like goes on in our world. She never expected that she was going to be called queen of the world or queen of anything. She was just like going into this normal life. She was going to get married. She was going to have kids. And then someday she'd die. So this must have been shocking to have an angel show up. "Greetings, favored woman. The Lord is with you." God noticed her. She was in a town, she was in a place in the world and in time when nobody noticed teenage girls. Nobody cared. But God noticed her, and God chose her. And he says, "The Lord is with you." That's the kind of thing that angels always said to people when he was going to ask them to do something really hard, but something that would change life forever. Now, angels don't do small talk, okay? They don't talk about the weather, and they don't talk about, clothes or anything. So Mary knew that more was coming. And it was. She was going to have a son. She wasn't even married yet, which was huge complication back in that day. You could get executed for doing something like this. And he says, you're blessed, you're favored. You don't have to earn it. God has seen you. God is going to do something amazing through your life. His name's going to be Jesus or Joshua. He's going to be a Savior. He's going to be very great. And we now know, based on who Jesus is, that that's an understatement. God himself was going to show up on this planet. How great? Son of the Most High God. And then this crystal clear Messiah prophecy. The Lord will give him the throne of his ancestor David, and he will reign over Israel forever. His kingdom will never end. And so all of a sudden, Mary knew what every Jewish person back in that culture knew, that the Messiah was coming, and she was going to be his mom. Scary stuff. Now, that's an amazing message. That's an amazing message. Now, there seems to be this thing in her where she says, I'm not going to miss that for anything, okay? I'm going to do it, you know? You think, okay, well, yeah, I mean, an angel was standing in front of her. Of course she would know that. But that same angel had stood in front of Zechariah. That's what it was talking about at the beginning. His wife Elizabeth was going to have a baby. This angel had gone to Zechariah and told him what was going to happen, and he doubted. Like, he's standing in the temple. He's got an angel in front of him, and he basically says, I don't think you're telling the truth. And of course, he wasn't able to talk until the baby was actually born. And here's the deal. I think that many times we're more likely to respond with yes when we're young than when we're old, because, you get old and you get settled into your ways and you're thinking, man, I ain't about to, be chasing a toddler around the tent. I mean, this is going to be crazy. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that come up when you kind of get settled into life. I'm not sure what all Mary understood at that particular moment, but her answer was, yep, I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm guessing that her mom and dad probably would have strongly advised against it. You know how you're going to ruin our family's reputation, this whole... I mean, this is a small town. People will never forget this, okay? And it was a tough call. But Mary didn't hesitate. And she was confused and disturbed. I mean, let's just talk about the price tag on this, okay? This would wreck her reputation, I guarantee it. Because who's going to believe somebody who says, I'm pregnant, but I'm a virgin? Were you in the swimming pool with somebody? What happened? And then it would wreck her future with Joseph. I mean, how's Joseph going to believe that she wasn't with some other guy when she comes and she's 3 months pregnant, probably at the time that she talked to him? And then there was the trip to Bethlehem, this scary trip to go pay taxes. There was no place to stay for them. They didn't know where they were. They couldn't bathe. They couldn't do anything. And then at a time when every mom wants to have some help from her mom and from other women, there was Joseph. He was there when she's giving birth in this filthy stable, okay? Awful place to give birth. And then there was the threat to Jesus' life. As we read on in the story, we find out that the King Herod was upset because this new king was coming, and he went out to try and kill him, okay? And then when you read on in the story, you find out that Jesus' siblings did not believe in him. For them to not believe in Jesus, that meant that they didn't believe what their mother Mary told them about Jesus. So there's just all this stuff. Even the people in Jesus' hometown didn't believe, okay? Jesus came into their synagogue, began to tell them who he was, and they tried to throw him off a cliff. So this was a difficult calling. Being all in had a price tag on it. Now, being a parent is kind of fun, I mean, there's fun parts of it. It's kind of a lifetime commitment. I mean, you all know that. But I'll tell you what's tough, and that's when your son or when your child, your daughter, whoever it is, they're stirring up trouble, and all of a sudden it all comes back on you. And that's kind of what happened to Jesus. Now, Mary had kind of a forewarning of this. They went in to take the baby and take Jesus in to be dedicated. And there was Simeon, this prophet. Listen to what happened. Jesus' parents were amazed at what was being said about him, saying what was being said about Jesus. Then Simeon blessed them, and he said to Mary, the baby's mother, this child is destined to cause many in Israel to fall. And if you're a mom or if you're a parent, you're thinking, there's going to be trouble, because it's not going to be just the little people that will fall, okay? And many others to rise and take their place, I suppose. He has been sent as a sign from God. So, yeah, he's from God. There's no doubt about that. But many will oppose him. This is going to be tough. And as a result, the deepest thoughts of many hearts will be revealed. Anybody know any really important people that like to have their secrets told? That's a death threat, especially at a time like this. And a sword will pierce your own soul too. Now, at this point, it's too late, okay? Mary can't back out. She's got the baby there in her arms and she's dedicating him, But we have 2,000 years perspective on what actually happened back then, how God intervened in history and changed everything. And she was part of it. Scary journey, but she was part of it. Now, what does this mean? The sword will pierce your own soul too. It's not like you can have a child who flips everything over in the world and then have no, things happen to you. They did happen to Mary. It was difficult. She was there at the foot of the cross when Jesus died. She saw him humiliated. She saw his whole mission seem to end in failure. She was there. She was there. It was inconvenient to have Jesus as your son. It was inconvenient. And here's the question, and I want to pose this to you. Is it possible to be all in? Is it possible to do what God has created you to do with your life and have it be comfortable and easy and no big deal and so on, and you kind of die, at the age of 90 with a smile on your face? I mean, is that possible? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Let me ask it another way. Is it possible to follow Jesus completely and still pursue money as the big deal in your life, or pursue comfort, or trying to save your own life? Jesus said no. Jesus said, you try to save your own life, you can lose your soul. Now think about this in some other contexts, okay? Some of you have had quite a bit of education and so on. Is it possible to, get great marks, and be cum laude, graduate cum laude in your class and so on, and have, get all the esteem that you need, have other people admire your work and everything like that, and just be, and not be all in, to like to party into the late hours, and not get up for the early classes and blow off exams and things like this? Can you do that? Well, not unless you're brilliant, because you have to be all in. Think about marriage. Is it possible to have a great marriage and, like you walk down the aisle with this person and they say, you know what, I really like you a lot. And I'm going to be 70% in. Okay, we'll do 75%. I'm going to be 75% in. Does that make for a great marriage? No, you want to be all in. You want 120%. What about being a parent? Is it possible to be a parent, and let's say you and your spouse come to a mutual decision, and you basically say, well, we don't do diapers, we don't do midnight feedings, we don't do, flu, we don't do cold, we don't do temper tantrums, we don't do disruptive issues at school and so on. And by the way, we don't do puberty, we don't do pimples, we don't do rebellion, we don't do ADD. Well, we're glad to have you as our child. You can't be a great parent and not be all in. You've got to be all in when it comes to being a parent. Would you want somebody to do a job for you who's not all in? Like they're building a home for you that's going to be your forever home. Would you want them to be all in? If somebody's operating on your brain, would you want them to be all in? If somebody's flying you to Hong Kong, would you want them? We want them to be all in. And so here's the thing. Do you want God to be all in? I mean, when it comes to, being all in with him, do you want his help? Do you want his information? Do you want his healing? Do you want his forgiveness? Do you want him to travel with you? Do you want him to be there with you the night that you die in the hospital and you're waiting to go to heaven? Do you want God to be all in? If you want him to be all in and he calls you to be all in, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you be? See, we're tempted to be all in and like the thought of being all in until it gets uncomfortable. We like the ease, but all of a sudden, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not comfortable. Sometimes it's downright inconvenient. The angel said a couple things to Mary that helped her stay firm in her devotion. And these are the promises to you as well. Greetings, favored woman, the Lord is with you. God will always be with you. When he calls you to do something and you say, I'm all in, I'll do it, he will stay with you to the end. Even in the times when you get scared, even in the times when you briefly go the other way, he will be with you in the end. Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. Don't be afraid, Mary. And we are afraid, aren't we? We get sometimes into something and we think, I am way above my pay grade here. I am in way over my head. He says, I'm going to be with you. Don't be afraid. The one who created the universe is by your side, and he's going to give you strength and help. For you have found favor with God. In other words, God loves you. He favors you. His grace is on you. He's going to stay with you because he doesn't just love you, he likes you. But people have always had some arguments with God, and that's not a bad thing. Moses had arguments with God. God came into him and said, I want you to release my people, from Egypt and so on. And Moses had all the excuses. He begins counting them off. Well, God, I can't talk that well, I stutter, and I'm not really into that, and what about this, and what about my brother, and what about Pharaoh? I know him, and just all these questions. And finally, he just came out with it, and he said, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. But he did. And it changed history, created a whole nation. You think about, Ruth and Esther and just all these people, what would history be like if they said, no, I got to do my own thing here? What God asked them to do was impossible, but God is great with impossible things. What you see next is the question that Mary still has about this, okay? Mary asked the angel, but how can this happen? I'm a virgin, The angel replied, Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you, so that the baby to be born will be holy, and he will be called the Son of God. What's more, your relative Elizabeth has become pregnant in her old age. How cool is that? People used to say she was barren, but now she's conceived a son and is in her 6th month. For the word of the Lord will never fail. Another way to translate this is, nothing is impossible with God. In fact, many times you know that God is asking you to do it if it's impossible. When we got this building 20 years ago, so if you would have told me, okay, well, you're going to have to negotiate with the Hells Angels, and you're going to have to do it, negotiate from 10 million down to, 3.925, and there's going to be all kinds of stuff that goes with it, and then you're going to have to raise, $2 million in 3 weeks. I mean, I would have thought, that's impossible. But nothing is impossible with God. Mary responded, I am the Lord's servant. I'm all in. I am the Lord's servant. May everything that you have said about me come true. And then the angel left her. Now here's the deal. When God looks for people to do something truly great, he doesn't look for truly great people to do it. He uses people like Mary, like this teenage girl, and so on. And I mentioned we protest, Moses protested, come along with Gideon, and Gideon, God comes to him. He's scared to death of the people, that he's hiding down in this pit, from the enemies and so on. And God comes along and says, I want you to lead, Israel, and I want you to conquer this enemy, and he has all these things. Oh God, I love you. I love you a lot, But, have you looked at the enemy? And by the way, I'm the least of the people, and our tribe is the least of all the tribes, and we're the smallest place, and I'm the smallest person. And by the way, make the wool wet, make it dry, and give me another sign. It was like he goes through all this stuff. And he takes 300 men and defeats 300,000 soldiers. And Queen Esther, she wins a beauty pageant. She's Miss Susa, And so God, her uncle comes to her and says, you got to do something. You got to talk to the king. And she's like, I'm eye candy. I just want a beauty pageant. I don't know anything about this stuff, And what if I get killed? This is going to be uncomfortable. I don't think I'm cut out for this, And he says to her, well, why do you think God put you where he put you? Very interesting question, isn't it? And she did it. And she saved her nation. Please understand, I don't think Mary had any idea, how this was going to turn out, After 2,000 years of history, this teenager who said, yes, I'm all in, has become the most honored woman who's ever lived on this planet. She was just a teenage girl. She had all the problems. And she could have said, but I'm still a teenager. Like I'm only 14, and I got pimples, and I got this body image thing going on. And I'm poor. I can't even support myself, And like, I have plans. I got a great fiance. What's this going to do to our marriage plans? Like, we got this all planned out. We got the wedding chapel and everything, And I can't explain my pregnancy to all my friends. What am I going to say to them, And I'm far from perfect. How am I going to raise a perfect kid, And how do I tell my parents? I mean, my parents are going to be really upset. How do I tell them that I'm pregnant because God made me pregnant? And I don't know my Bible. I don't know the prophecies. I can't quote Genesis. And she may have thought that. But her only question to this angel was, I'm a virgin. I have no idea how this is going to happen. And Gabriel didn't really elaborate, and give her all the detailed explanation of what was going to happen. He just simply said, the Spirit of God is going to hover over you, just like he hovered over the earth back when it was created and created all life, just like he breathed into a handful of dirt and created a human being that would then create everybody else. He's going to breathe life into you, and he's going to be with you. And Mary's response, Okay, I'm all in. Let it happen to me exactly as you say, because I belong to God. I'm his servant. I'll do whatever he asks. And the question I want to ask you is, whose servant are you? And do you have the right to call yourself a servant of God and not do what he asks you to do? I don't think. She said, I am God's servant. May everything happen to me just like you've said. That's a tough thing, isn't it? And it's actually a growth thing, I think, that we go through in our lives, You have our mission, and then, the mission, after we find out the mission, it's a cool mission, but there's road work ahead. There's inconvenient roads. There's uncomfortable roads. There's scary roads, And so you're on this way, what I am called to do, and your temptation is, I think I'm going to back out. I think I'm going to go find a hotel, stay there until all the road work is done. It won't happen. You got to go through it. With Mary, you think about this, like when you read this prophecy, it's, there's you, you're called by God your favorite and so on. And then there's him, there's he. And a very natural question would be, well, okay, there's me, I'm really small, I know that. And then there's he, this is all about him. Well, what about me? What about me? And that's the question we ask, isn't it? What about me? So I think when we're called to do something great, something significant, something that's going to change the lives of other people, our first response is, because it will be illegal to not say this, oh, Jesus, I love you. Yes, I do love you, Jesus, so very much. I do love you, okay? I desperately want to make a difference with my life. I want to do something that's meaningful and tangible, And I want to be known as a loving and kind and generous and sacrificial person, And when I'm done and when I cross the line into heaven, I want to have hundreds. No, I want to have thousands of people waiting for me to tell me how my life changed their lives, And I really want to hear Jesus say with joy in his voice and a sparkle in his eyes, it's so good to have you home. Well done, good and faithful servant. That's what I want to hear. So here's my question. Can this happen if you're like running at some point less than all in? I'm not saying if you're struggling, because we all struggle with this calling. But is it possible to remove the from uncomfortable? Is it possible to live a life of ease that looks like everybody else's life in this world and accomplish what God created you to do? I don't think it is. I think a lot of Christians would like to have God come in, kind of like the genie in the lamp, when they snap their fingers and come in and make things a little bit easier, and work things out for them, and help them feel better about their lives and so on, and solve their skin problems and make their hair nice and shiny. I think we would all like God to solve our problems. But when it comes to actually saying, I am your servant, I will do what you asked me to do because you're God and I'm not. It's a struggle, isn't it? When we lived in Pennsylvania, we had three brothers who went to our church, and they owned this big furniture store called Miller Brothers Furniture. And they asked Lori to paint a sign for them for this part of their store. It was called the Comfort Zone. Now, I just want you to just take a guess in your minds about what they actually sold in this place, the Comfort Zone. How many of you think it was kind of like straight back oak pews that you sat in, as a kid if you went to church and so on? How many of you think it was that? Well, it wasn't, of course. You all know it was lazy boy chairs and all the equivalent. Now, this isn't exactly a lazy boy chair. This is kind of a comfort rocker, from our nursery and so on. But it is comfortable, and you can sit here, and if you're, in the rocking chair, if you're kind of here working on stuff, you can, you've got your cell phone, and with your cell phone, you've got access to the world. You've got access to everything you could ever want. You can order in Uber Eats and stuff. And then you've got the remote control, and it controls all the sound systems, all the TVs, everything else in your house. And you can sit here from your chair, and you can just remote it all. Now, how many of you think that, somebody's going to say, okay, hey, it's time to exercise. Go out and run 4 miles, 5 miles. And you think, oh, I don't think so. I'm really comfortable here. Well, why don't you go out and help your neighbor? Well, it's really comfortable here. And by the way, I've got Uber Eats coming in at 6, we just tend to love comfort. Everybody does. It's not wrong to love comfort. What is wrong and what doesn't help us is to choose comfort over doing what God has asked us to do. And what Jesus said about it, was pretty clear. He said, remember people asked him about what it meant to be a disciple and so on. And he turned and he said to the crowd, he said, okay, you want to be my disciple? He said, if you want to be my disciple, you have to deny yourself. What do you mean deny myself? Like, why should I deny myself? I'm important. Why should I deny myself? He said, you got to take up your cross. The cross, we use that word quite freely these days, but you said it back in that culture. They'd seen people hanging from crosses, dying in humiliation and horrible pain. Cross sent this shiver up and down people's spines. And follow me. Follow me. Look at how I love. Look at how I treat other people. Look at how I do what my Father asks. Follow me. And then he gives this warning. He says, if you try to save your life, which is what the majority of people in our world system are doing, save your own life. Save your, get it for yourself. Try to live without frustration. Try to do everything and make it all easy and so on. Be ashamed of Jesus, which is sometimes what it leads to. He says, you will lose the most important thing that you have. It's your soul. You'll lose who you are. You'll lose who you were created to be. And Mary, this teenage girl, plays this stunning, powerful role in history at a very juncture when all of history cracked into two big pieces. And that's what we remember as brave. I'm all in. I'm all in. Let's go. I want you to take a look at this clip. It's actually from The Chosen. And Mary says at the beginning of this clip, she says, it wasn't easy. Listen to what she says about what it was like to give birth to Jesus and have the Son of God in her home.
So how did you feel when it happened?
When what happened?
His birth. Even before that, how did you know? When did you know who he was?
I don't know. We're all tired. Do you really want to hear all that?
Yes. Yes.
Oh. Well, nothing about it was easy. I can tell you that. It wasn't in my hometown. My mother wasn't there. We had no midwife. I don't know if I'm ready to give all the details. Maybe some other time. But I do remember this. When Joseph handed him to me, it was like nothing I expected. It was like everything I'd heard about having a baby, but I thought this would be completely different.
What do you mean?
I had to clean him off. He was covered in... I will be polite. He needed to be cleaned. And he was cold. And he was crying. And he needed my help. My help. A teenager from Nazareth. It actually made me think for just one moment, is this really the Son of God? And Joseph later told me he briefly thought the same thing. But we knew he was. I don't know what I expected. But he was crying and he needed me. And I wondered how long that would last. He doesn't need me anymore. Not since we taught him how to walk and eat. He hasn't needed me for a long time, I suppose. And after Joseph passed, may he rest in peace. He grew up even quicker. And I wish I could say that made me happy. Of course, as a Jew, I'm excited to see everything he does for our people, and I'm proud of him. But as a mom, It makes me a little sad sometimes.
Sometimes we look at somebody like Mary whose life and influence has changed the world and inspired, millions and billions of people. And you say, we think, they were exceptional. Like God had his eye on her, from the beginning of time and stuff, and I'm not that important, and I don't have that much to offer, and look at me, I don't have much influence, and so on. So, surely I'm excused from this. Surely God has lots of other people he can do, and I can kind of do my thing and so on. And that's not true. God created you like you are. You are made in the image of God. God has put his Spirit in you if you belong to Jesus. God created you with all the gifts and the talents and the qualities in just the place you are to make the difference that he created you to make. And he created you to make a difference, to change lives. And if you miss that, well, you don't want to do that. See, it all depends on where you're looking. What do you really believe? I mean, what do you really believe about God? What do you believe about his mission? What do you believe about why Jesus came? Where are your eyes? Are your eyes looking to try and get as much as you possibly can before you die? Or are you looking beyond that to the well done, to what God will do through your life that will last forever? Because you see, if you're doing it for here, if you're looking for the comfort and the safety and the cars and, and the adrenaline rushes and, and success, money, everything else, ease and so on, it all gets left here. And that's what you don't want with your one and only life. Because what you do here changes everything on the other side of that tombstone. Logical question is, what's going to cost me to be all in? And I would say, maybe the real question isn't what's it going to cost you? Because it will cost you something. What's it going to cost you to not be all in? To just do what you think? Mary said, may it be to you, to me, as you have said. Hernan Cortez from Spain was one of the first explorers of the New World, and I don't agree with everything he did, but he landed first in Cuba, and then in 1519 he landed on the coast of Mexico. And everybody came ashore and so on, and he had this talk with them about what their mission was going to be and so on, and are you all in? We're all in, And then he said, burn the ships. Very interesting thing, okay? In other words, you're going to be tempted to give up. Some of you are going to get sick. Some of you are going to want to go home. Some of you are going to be just sick of just all the deprivation of living in this place, and you're going to want to go home. So we're just going to remove that option. Burn the ships. Luke Smallbones, one of the two brothers that formed the band for King and Country, said that this song, Burn the Ships, came to him in a really tough situation when he was in his life. He was on tour with his brother, doing their shows every night, and his wife, basically, Courtney, was home. She was pregnant, and she was struggling with morning sickness, and combined with just a lot of other things, she was given some pills to take that would help her with her anxiety and with all this stuff. Now, Luke said, I noticed some personality changes in her, but I thought, no, she's pregnant. That's probably what it is. And she called him one day, and she said, you need to come home. I can't stop taking these pills. With some help from a mental hospital, he went home right away, She was had a lot of courage. She broke the addiction and so on. But she still felt the pull of those pills for her pain and for her anxiety. And one day she said, Luke, I've got to symbolize something. I've got to, symbolize a break from this. I've got to flush these pills down the toilet. I'm done. I'm done with the shame. I'm done with the guilt. And I'm going to move into a whole new way of life. And as those pills swirl around in the bowl of that toilet, he thought about these words, burn the ship. No turning back. This is what he wrote. Don't let it arrest you, this fear of falling again. If you need a refuge, I'll be here right till the end. It's time to burn the ships, cut the ties, send a flare into the night, say a prayer, turn the tide, dry your tears, and wave goodbye. When Mary said, I am the Lord's servant, may it be with me just as you said. That was her burn the ships moment. No turning back. I want to play the music video for you right now. But before I do, I just need to ask, what's your escape hatch? You're going to try to get out of what you ought to do, and you're going to try and go back to the old and everything like that. I mean, where's the pills? Where's the stash of booze or of food or whatever it is, credit cards? Where's this? Like, what? Or do you have an escape hatch, or are you all in? Burn the ships. Let's watch the video, and I'll come back and pray.
How did we get here? What comes to wait on a lonely shore? I can see in your eyes, dear, it's hard to take for a moment more. We've got to
burn the ships, cut the ties, send a flare into the night. Say a prayer, turn the tide, dry your tears and wave goodbye.
step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and don't you look back. Don't let it arrest you. This fear of falling again. And if you need a refuge, I will be right here until the end. Oh, it's time to
Burn the ships, cut the ties, send a flare into the night. Say a prayer, turn the tide, dry your tears and wave goodbye.
step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and don't you look back.
So long to shame, walk through the sorrow, out of the fire, into tomorrow.
So flush the pills, face the fear, feel the weight disappear. We're coming clean, we're born again. Our hopeful lungs can breathe again. Oh, we can breathe again. And step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away. We can dance upon the heartache, yeah. So light a match, leave the past, burn the ships, and don't you look back. And don't you look back. And don't you look back.
God, in a world where commitment is kind of a thing of the past in many circles, where people are all in for the next 5 minutes and then they're all into something else. I pray that you'll help us to have the conviction down deep in our hearts that you tell the truth about life. That when you call us to take up our cross, that you will be there. When you call us to deny ourselves, it will be for something far better. That something better than this life lies in the next one, and you're calling us to do something with our lives, with our time, with our resources that matters. Give us the faith to believe and to burn the ships. Amen. God bless you. Go be strong. Decide to follow Jesus. No turning back.